Ahem. Ahem. I am here. Hello. Hi. Yes. I gotta pull water out of my bag. That way I have something to drink. Okay. Okay. We are here. We are alive. It is 8 o'clock in the evening. Sorry about that. I should have been more clear about my schedule this week after Sunday's stream. To clarify that now, I just learned something very frustrating in Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Houses. Hello, Jinner. How is you? And what is that frustrating thing? I assume it's not spoilery. Oh, yeah. I really briefly mentioned my schedule for this week. Thursday, we should still be on. You've been okay. Wonderful. Or at least okay. I don't know. I don't know if that's a regular okay or if everything's well okay. It's kind of spoilery, but the number of recruitable blue lions is 2. What the fuck? That is frustrating. What the fuck? Everyone's a retainer. I don't give a shit. Tell them to quit their jobs. You work for me now. Okay. So, I had a thought. Because I've got classes to level. And it shouldn't be expired yet. Nope, it's not expired yet. I have a Wondrous Tales to complete. So I figured something that I could do is if I have particularly long queue times while waiting for particular things to do in my Wondrous Tales, I can take those moments to brainstorm out loud and, like, just kind of talk about some shit that I'm going to do for my personal D&D group, the Pathfinder 2nd Edition group that, like, as they've decided that's the system they want to work with. Because I've been talking a little bit about this on Twitter. I have taken on the Herculean task of fucking making my own Pantheon. And I don't know if I mentioned how big said Pantheon got, but following some ideas while looking around for some inspiration. Pantheon's what, 27 gods? The used Pantheon is going to be 23 gods. The full Pantheon. One moment. You know what? How many lines are these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. I don't even know if I used the 29th line, but I guess I'll find out here shortly, huh? I did use the 29th line. Shit. So, not the largest I've seen. I've done 200 or so big. Jesus Christ. That's 58 minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is 80 gods. That is 80 gods in the full Pantheon. And I'm only using 23 of them. For, like, primary lore building purposes. Oh, why the fuck did I do that to myself? Then again, that Pantheon had a god of opening doors silently and another god of open doors quietly. Why? What is the distinction? What the fuck? But hold on. Okay, that checks, but what else is being real naughty? Just Chrome? Why the fuck are there 23 instances of Chrome? Hang on. Oh, you closed for a hot fucking minute. A lot of them were essentially deified ancestors. That's funny. Okay, that shouldn't be half of my memory. What the hell is going on? Or it might be. 9 out of 16. Okay, yeah, that may very well be half of my memory being used right now. It's odd to me. That is using 1,300 megabytes with the big B. But then there are a lot of other things that are open that are also using a number of megabytes. I was just concerning myself with performance. Don't mind me. And you couldn't deify someone to an existing role. That's goofy. But okay, fair. But, like, I basically made a god to cover every class, to cover every race, and then some evil for that race. I covered gods for concepts. I covered gods for objects that would be worshipped. I covered a progenitor god. I covered gods that just ruled over gods. I covered evil gods from things that you fear and not so evil gods from things that you fear. It went all over the place. And I decided to pick 23 of them. And some of that is going to have to be some brainstorming about, like, their edicts and such. That and just maybe discussing a little bit about, like, the background of the world and stuff. Because, like, I still have to create the larger swath of history. I've got broad strokes so far, which is sufficient, but if I want to get into specific details, I will also do that as well. Ooh, the fladoodle. What? The fuck? One of my free company members says a queue of 1,400. And it's not currently the time when Final Fantasy XIV is stupid popular. Oh, so that's the list of major gods, and I have a little book that, like, covers the gods that I'm working with, and I've started with, like, the number of followers or their types of followers, rather, because I decided for a specific gameplay like thing, I decided all of their weapons, and the vast majority of them I decided because it's really dumb when the preferred weapon is a simple weapon a lot of times, I feel like. But most of them are martial. Not all of them are good martial weapons, but, like, you know, this also makes it so if you're going to be a champion of certain ones, you have to be real creative of how you're going to be using that weapon. I mean, conceivably, you could have a, what is the specific the specific champion? A liberator of the godly thief, as I've given him his title. Because he is chaotic neutral, but he does allow chaotic good followers. So, you could be the champion of the thief god. He also allows neutral good, but, like, that's really hard to allow, like, a redeemer to justify. Oh, 21 minutes. And they're not at a boss? Hello, Squirrel, how is you? Well, this is the least friendly bunch I've had the pleasure of coming into. I say hi and nobody says anything. You were playing with the Lord of the Handheld World Steam Deck and laying in bed watching Mana. How is that ruddy thing, by the way? It's big, I've noticed. Apparently bigger than a Switch. Big, but oh my god, is it amazing. I mean, I would hope so. Like, it kind of pushes the handheld world from what I understand it. Which, of course, Valve are the ones that are going to do that. You really expect any less out of them? Like, I feel like they didn't make Half-Life Alyx if they weren't going to, like, push the boundaries of VR, and that's what they did. Vita, she's still queen, but this thing is the Lord. You know what? Touche. Oh yeah, there is a double pull. Picking a weird time to do it. But yeah, so that was just some fun thoughts I was thinking of. But keep in mind, I had a Switch. You don't like what? Oh, you have a Switch. I mean, that thing in handheld mode is great. Obviously, I don't use it that much in handheld mode. But yeah, I was just discussing, or rather talking about the stuff that I've been working on for my Pathfinder 2nd Edition campaign for my friends. Of which, I already have that offending, huh? I already have those bottoms? Really? Huh. I just gotten into talking about the Godly Thief and how technically you could be a champion of said thief. Now, as you might imagine, their holy weapon is thieving related. I feel like you tell it on your Steam Deck, you're not gonna snap it in half. You're laying on your side. That checks. It does look like a girthy boy. I'm gonna fucking burn perfect balance. Damn. Couldn't maintain it. I also have all Neptunia and Trails on the go. That is true. Let's do this again. I am so fucking far off my rotation, it's not even funny. That would be something I'd want a fucking Steam Deck for. Would be to have some of the, like, bigger games on the go, like all of the Final Fantasies, for example. Hello, Nox, how is you? So I did manage to figure out the edicts of the Godly Thief, relatively speaking. As well as the, I believe it's anathema? Or anathema? I have no idea how to pronounce that word. But basically the things that are in violation for the followers of this Godly Thief. I think they're okay. Maybe they need a little work. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm not 100% sure. Persona on the go. Could be. Provide your own persona. Ow, also we lost our healer? Are you shitting me? Oh, this is gonna be interesting. Anathema. Or anathema. It's either anathema or anathema. Persona will also be coming to the Switch. That is true. Oh, wrong thing to use that on. Fuck's sakes. There we go. Okay, I'm getting the Fladoodle out of here as soon as we roll on this. Another pair of bottoms. What the fuck? I will read these off for you. Brief, like, as soon... Oh, right. We have to wait, because the fucking... We'll wait. So I made it. That the edicts of the godly thief, who is chaotic neutral as a reminder, so not necessarily a good god. Take objects that you find valuable. Exploit secrets to turn a profit. Keep the network of thieves informed. And buy the poor's trust. Also partial to symmetrical layout. But the Switch is cool. The Switch is cool in that it's got like a weird asymmetrical layout. I'm biased. The anathema, or anathema, of this godly thief is to take from the poor. I feel like I went with my best to make things obvious of like, alright, well, what is like the best of the best thieves going to be like? The important thing about the world I had with 200 plus gods, a short prayer and offering to the most appropriate goddess for what you are undertaking would get you a minor boon. Okay, so there was a mechanical difference. Or a mechanical benefit, like people would worship multiple gods. What do you mean? It stands to reason that would happen in this world, which is partly why I am going to use 23 as like primary mechanical gods for like gameplay purposes. That are the most revered or what have you. What is this other one? Jesus. Apparently some things are going under maintenance right now, so I am in a dangerous position in Final Fantasy XIV, but that's fine. That's fine. We're fine. Other anathema of this godly thief. Betray or abandon your crew. This is specifically to, like, establish in this world the godly thief has a set of codes. And one of the things you don't do is you don't fucking turn your back on the people that you work with. That's fucked up. Honor among thieves is kind of something that this admittedly chaotic neutral thief has. Not the most sensible thing for a chaotic neutral person to have, but at the same time, sometimes you gotta give a little bit. If you're always turning your back on everybody that you work with, eventually you're not gonna be a thief anymore. You're either gonna be dead or in prison. Is like the logic there. You have to make a concession if you want to keep breaking the law like that. Another anathema, killing someone during a heist. This one's a little bit of a gray area. I mean this more specifically in like a civilized area, if like the party is a group of thieves or some such, and they get themselves in a situation where they might be captured. Killing that person that could capture them is absolutely frowned upon by the God of Thieves. Not okay. You're not supposed to do that. You're a thief, not a murderer. Get the job done right, or flee, reconvene, and try again. But now the stakes are a little higher because security's up because of your initial fuck up. And the last one, because have I told you that I made a Kenku for a game? And in social interactions where he isn't trying to communicate, he just makes noises? No, but that sounds like a Kenku. The last one, I had difficulty deciding, because, like, those 3 anathema are basically, like, all you really need. But I specifically wanted something, so, like, a good follower of this thief god would, you know, to kind of emphasize the idea of honor among thieves. Anathema is to hoard the earnings from your crew. That being like, you know, if you're a solo thief and you don't have a crew, fine, keep all the shit to yourself. But if you're working with other people for any reason, like your fence, give them a fucking, like, cut of, like, what you earn. Jesus. Don't keep it all for yourself, asshole. We an empty bar? Well, now it sounds like it's busy. Ah, I see. That kind of Kenku. That's silly. I'm gonna queue it for leveling. This might take a while since I'm a bard. Okay, maybe not that long. But otherwise, I don't have all that worked out for all of the gods so far. What I have written down is gods I maybe should start working on for the edicts and anathema is a sun goddess who's lawful good, a moon goddess who is chaotic good, the father of nature, as I put it, who is neutral good, followed by the guardian of nature. I wanted a sort of duality here for those 2 gods, who is true neutral, the goddess of magic, who is also true neutral, the god of art, who is neutral good. That's meant to be the bard god, or at least one of the muses for bards. More specifically, their only muse at the moment. Godly muse. The god of wisdom, who is lawful good. Bear in mind, that's the monk god. I already went over the thief god, who is the godly thief. And then a god who I have labeled as the trickster, because I love the idea of just having a god who is nothing more than a fucking practical jokester, prankster kind of character. Who is also ready and able to break the law, but does it because it's funny, not because they have an ulterior motive. So, they don't get along with people of the lawful variety because they kind of piss them off. You also tend to make random noises when you're talking to people. So just like your party's trying to have a normal conversation with this guy, and suddenly from the Kenku there's a fucking lion roar or something crazy. Is that what I'm understanding? As long as you're not the one trying to talk to someone, you'll make a noise randomly. That's silly. Well, considering the domain of the moon goddess, because those domains, why do I not have them written on this fucking page? I have them written on the other thing. Okay, the Moon Goddess. Their domains are the Moon, Trickery, Darkness, and Confidence. My idea for those domains is because, in part of the lore for the Moon Goddess, they originally weren't meant or supposed to be a god at all. The moon was a celestial entity that orbits, or rather, the 3 moons. I nearly got hit by a spell one time. NPC got annoyed with me squawking by the window. That is a short-tempered NPC. But yeah, the Moon Goddess resides over the 3 moons of the world. Yes, I know that would get really fucky with tides. My primary idea is that the moon is, like, orbited by the other 2 moons at this point. It's the only way I can make that make any logical sense, instead of 3 moons with their own orbits around the planet, because that would get really fucky with tides. If they're not in, like, the relatively same place. So, the moon is probably a little bit bigger than our moon in order to have 2 smaller satellites. Yeah, it's a magic world, so the tides are magic as well. I mean, not impossible. Serious conversation going on, my kink, you wanted to fuck with them. I see. But, like, the idea is that these moons weren't a divine entity in and of them. Oh, well, there we go. All right. That's not a cancel a stream, but that's definitely going to be a reconsideration of what we do at the moment. Because I don't think we want to sit here for however many minutes it takes to actually log in. He also has the self-destruct mimic. What the anyway. But one of the edicts of the Moon Goddess being that, you know, confidence and trickery are part of their domains, because I definitely want one of their edicts to be have confidence in your actions or some such, or be confident in your existence or something along those lines. The wording should be specific. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. All right, fair. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth waiting for 1,200 people to do their thing, and maybe my party as well. That sounds less good. Gods, I don't have anything for backup at the moment. That would be good, like this game might be. Factorio, if we play it as slow as humanly fucking possible. How the fuck do I word this? How do I word this edict for the Moon Goddess regarding to confidence? Because the Moon Goddess would want their followers to be confident in and of themselves. Because by basically fooling a bunch of mortals, the Moon Goddess became a goddess. So she has confidence in her abilities to seem like a god and act like a god, because everybody fucking believed that she was a god when she wasn't, and ergo she became one. You heard things you weren't supposed to. You decayed a bit and look like an Aarakocra from World of Warcraft. There are Aarakocra in World of Warcraft? What the fuck? Alright, who came first, the chicken or the egg? Never back down from a task without trying? That could work. Though, to maybe simplify it, Always give a task effort before giving up. Or always try a task before giving up. Well, I mean, I could rightfully sit here and just change this to fucking. There is a specific tag for this. Fucking talk shows and broadcast. I mean, hell, I could just capture a fucking like text document and do that instead. Just chatting. Yeah, that's basically what this is. It's just chatting. We will be honest, since we're not actually really playing Final Fantasy XIV. My game didn't fucking update. God damn it. Well now. I'll just change the title. Not in Final Fantasy XIV. Nope, no you don't. I will get in trouble for that one. I also think if I'm not actually going to play the game, I may as well not have it up, because that could get in some troubles. How is that displaying for you guys? Oh, that's how that's displaying for you guys. Huh. Weird that. Let's take that off the screen. And let's get that off the screen. And then let's actually maybe update the now playing Darkness. That's probably actually a game. Because we're here and Final Fantasy XIV is down, so we're just fucking brainstorming on a black screen. I could probably make this more entertaining somehow. I mean, I can definitely capture like a fucking text document. There, you know what? That at least gives people something to fucking look at. Let me get that set up. There we go. Notepad. And then I'll capture it on main since it's not that big of a deal for me. Notepad. Do not make source visible because I don't know what you're capturing first. Okay, it did know what to capture, thankfully. Source find window same type. Same executable. I don't know if capturing the cursor is going to be... sure. Why not? Then I will center it relatively. Now we will make it visible. Now it exists, and you all can see what the fuck I'm going to be doing here. That way you're not just left in the dark. I am going to transition. Oop. Does it capture the very top? No, it doesn't. But this is Notepad. I'm sure you're familiar. Hello. That is fucking tiny. Font. Hang on. One moment. We will make this bigger so everyone can see it. Okay, 36 size. Hello. I'm sure you can read that. I can read it. Okay, so. Here, let me fucking put down everything that I got for this character as well then. I'm sure I could find some fucking tunes or whatever to put in the background that aren't copyright infringing. So this would be... I'll even put down their actual name I've got in the game. They are Fine, the Moon Goddess. Domains. Moon. Duh. Trickery. Darkness. Confidence. Like, the moon is meant to be a situation of, like, no shit, they're the moon goddess. They're not the moon god. If their domain is not the moon, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Huh. The specific language, but their preferred weapon is the short sword. I wanted it to be open to the idea that this is also somebody that rogues could and maybe do follow. So, like, a devout follower rogue would use a short sword. Champions are a little shit out of luck, but they can figure it out. You could dual wield a short sword with something else, right? That's a light weapon, right? I actually don't know. Well, the primary idea is, like, God, champions are not going to have fun with this one. But a short sword is a martial weapon. But that could lead into, like, the idea of a very mobile champion, maybe. Short sword plus short sword. There you go. There you go. Okay, so edicts. First one is always try a task for keeping in. I know that's not the specific wording that we ultimately decided on, but I think that's a good edict. Thankfully, do have word wrap here. Makes things a lot less tricky. What happens if I... Oh. I can adjust the size of my window, and it's reflected on stream. But that does not go in the direction I wanted. Hang on. Fix that, please. Oop, okay, there we go. There. Now it looks a little nicer, kind of. And then the anathema. I still feel like I'm not pronouncing that word correctly. So that's the tie into confidence. What other edicts would this moon goddess, who became born as a god due to misgived worship, and because of them becoming a god, that worship was no longer misplaced. And so their confidence in their godliness. This is tough, yo. At least to me it is. Also, I am now recognizing that this is not perfectly centered. Hang on. That's better. I definitely know what would be anathema. I want to say anathema, potentially. Shying away from... What specific word do I want to use? Because I don't want to say conflict because that's bad. That's, like, very not amazing. Shying away from what word do I want to use? Danger's also not good. Fuck. Thinking of a word. You see the Herculean task I would have set myself up with if I did this for 80 gods? God, I can't even fathom. Uh... Oh. Okay. Probably not the best worded, but something to do with that, I think, is where I want to go with that. Something to do with this idea that, like, humility is good, but you can't just hand wave praise. You can't just say, nah. So maybe not being humble. Deflecting praise. Because that's just completely counter to the whole thing of the moon goddess in this instance. Like, if you're deflecting praise, you're literally doing the opposite of what made the moon goddess. You are not accepting, like, the teeny tiny bit of worship that people are giving you, and like, oh my god, you look fantastic. Ah, no, I don't. The moon goddess is like, how dare you? Which also gives this idea that, like, followers of the moon goddess are very confident in their being and who they are and what they do. They are probably some of the best artisans. Trickery, though. And see, this was something that I was doing to try to, like, I was trying to reflect all of the domains of what the god represents. That's why for the thief god, there is one that regards to secrecy in exploiting secrets to turn a profit as an edict. Like, that is something that a follower of that god is supposed to do. You are supposed to take secrets from other people and use that to make money. That is not a very good thing, but it does tie to one of their domains. This ties to confidence. Darkness and moon, we can probably tie something that is anathema. Which you could tie to some sort of nightlife. I don't want to make the moon goddess some sort of god of partying or society by accident. It's not really meant to be their realm. This one's tough. Yeah, I gotta really think about this one. And see, what was going to help is I'd be able to, like, take my mind off of it by doing something in Final Fantasy XIV. But clearly that plan fell through! Thanks, maintenance! Razzle frazzle. Grr. What else? What else would be anathema? Because the moon would shine light in darkness, and that's something that, like, you would want to do. Honestly, that is That could be a really vague edict, and it could mean a multitude of things. Bring light to darkness. I would probably have to fucking clarify that, because you shouldn't have something that vague as an edict. There. That's better. It's still vague, but it's more vague in a particular setting. You know what I mean? Because it still ties in with the moon, but it also still ties in with the idea of darkness as well. Although that's a thought. Because darkness should still exist, because otherwise the moon is not that brilliant. So, deflecting praise, another anathema could potentially be... honestly, because it could be a show of cowardice. And I'm wording that specifically because I don't want it to be anathema of like, that's a dark cave, let's light a torch. And then the one cleric of the party who follows the moon goddess is like, no, that is in defiance of my god. So the idea is like, you can't, like, you can bring light to some place that is dark, but you can't get rid of that darkness. You have to let it be, because there's some things the moon just still doesn't light up. There's some things that the moon just doesn't eliminate darkness to, and you have to be brave in those instances. That's what the moon is for. It's meant to give you that spark of confidence, right? To give you that bravery in the darkness, and getting rid of that darkness completely is a show of cowardice. And that's not okay. We're still not covering trickery. I think the trickery domain at this point is just like the domain of the goddess specifically, because she basically lied to everybody in order to get godly status. Cheers. Cheers to you, Jinra. I don't know why you're cheering me. I want to tie an edict into trickery, and I want to tie an anathema into trickery. Because I think we've got moon, darkness, and confidence pretty well covered here. Making what you making, Nox? You making burgers? That's what the emote looks like they're making. God, I could go for a fucking burger right now. Blood doodle. And Nox brought out the scissors again. Okay, it's burger of people. Trickery. What could cover the trickery domain that would still tie into the backstory of like duping people into believing you're a god? Can also bring chaos to things. Ever hear that human tastes like pork? I have now. That is a terrifying thought. I'm thinking. Would that run in conflict with the edict of trying a task before giving in? Because I want the idea of like maybe the idea is to blend trickery and confidence. In that an edict is to strive to become, or rather strive to be who you will through lies if you must. But then the idea is like it never is harmful, so you can't like rob someone of like your tricks can't be harmful. Like your lies can't be harmful to other people. And the second they are, you're supposed to like try another route, basically. Like you can still be who you want to be. It's just like, well, you can't lie. You can't use the route of lying in that particular instance to get to that spot. Because it's still a good god. They don't want you to be a dick. Even though chaotic neutral and true neutral followers are allowed for this god. I think that's the way to phrase it. Do what you must to be the best you. Because that allows room for lying. That allows room for tricking people. That allows room for hiding parts of yourself in that trickery. But then we have the anathema. So an anathema would be tricks and lies that now, of course, the anathema has to be a little specific, but can't be too specific to where it's useless. But also can't be too broad where everybody and their mother would be breaking it. I would say tricks and lies that put lives at risk. The idea is like you can lie about being the best general, but when it comes time that you gotta like pony up and be that general, you better fucking step off. Which might run counter to the edict, but you can't. That would be putting people's lives at risks. That would be the one point where it's like, all right, the edict is breakable then because you just no, don't put other lives at risk through your antics of being your best self. I mean, hell, the moon goddess probably like smiles upon practical jokes even, but the bucket over a door, that one might be pushing it. think small scale, like a frickin' like blanket situation above a door that when somebody opens it, they're just suddenly foof, ah! Or something along those lines. But like, still, the idea is like this is meant to be something of a small prankster goddess that is more interested in personal growth and development, and also like being that confident person and also shining their light on the world. Chalk eraser on a door. Yeah, precisely. Chalk eraser on a door. That would be funny. A little messy, but that would be funny. She probably wouldn't hate that prank. She probably would be like, well done. That is excellent. I should probably do the sun goddess next, who is Yone goddess, who in lore was one of the first gods that the progenitor god created. Their domains, sun. Do I have to explain why? Probably not. We got healing, and we have fire and might. And I picked might because I ultimately, like, negotiated with myself, and I thought, well, of all of the gods that I would want the paladin to be able to follow, a lawful good sun goddess is up there. So I may as well allow it that, like, you've got some good choices for domains. One of them's really fun because I don't think you really get fire out of a sun goddess, but the other ones are typical. Might, healing, sun, those are all typical domains of a god for, like, a paladin. I would also do followers, also note neutral good, chaotic good, true neutral, and chaotic neutral for this one. Followers of Yone are lawful good, lawful neutral, and neutral. There's meant to be this interesting dichotomy between Yone and Minfine. In lore, they are lovers. Is how this weird pantheonic Bible I'm going to have written. But that's mostly to be in reference to the usual thing of, like, the sun is in love with the moon, but the moon is always running from the sun. That's why you have day and night. Whoa! Even though, technically speaking, like, these are fucking gods and they are their own people, and in a world of magic and divine energies and gods, yeah, no, they just genuinely love each other, but they don't have their followers really intersect too much. They have boundaries. And they have different things that they cover. And as such, believing that this would be the stereotypical paladin choice, I'll give you 2 seconds to think about why I chose the Warhammer as the preferred weapon. This one actually plays a lot into the sun domain, honestly. Because the idea is if you're going to slay undead, you might be dealing with skeletons, and skeletons are crushed best with a fucking Warhammer. Like, in all my times playing Dungeons and Dragons, the skeleton is the scariest motherfucker to encounter at first. Because they always have damage resistance to slashing and piercing, but never blunt. They never have damage resistance to blunt. So there was really a mechanical choice in that. And it's also like the stereotypical paladin choice. But, you know. Considering that, now I have to think of edicts and anathema for the fucking sun goddess. The other thing in lore is, Minfine is responsible for creating a lot of the conceptual gods. The father of nature, who is Elos, who is also, that is the name of the planet that this campaign takes place on. That is in reference to Gaia, who I believe in Greek mythology is the name for Earth, ? But regardless, like, that's in direct reference. Yone is responsible for all of the class gods. Elos is responsible for all of the race or ancestry gods, rather. And Minfine is responsible for all of the conceptual gods. And then there's like 3 arbiters in the Greater Pantheon. One of law, one of magic, and one of life, I believe. And they are all responsible for those particular domains. Yeah. Or no, law, life, and time. Not magic. Right. Because you don't need an arbiter of magic when magic is something that your world kind of just creates and governs by itself. But the idea is, like, the arbiter of law is the one that, like, makes sure shit is upheld in both the universe and amongst the gods. The arbiter of life is the person that introduces life into the universe and the world. But the idea is I want the arbiter of law to be like this very uptight kind of person, and then the arbiter of life ultimately created life to want to push the boundaries of the things that the arbiter of law created, because they wanted something to appreciate all the hard work that the arbiter of law put in the universe. And the arbiter of law fucking hates it but tolerates it, because he knows ultimately that she's doing that as basically trying to be his best friend, trying to break his cold, harsh exterior. Basically, I want feel-good vibes in this pantheon. None of this Zeus literally running around and fucking everyone and everything. None of that. That's crazy. Even though it's very human. And then the arbiter time is obvious because that's one of those more absolute concepts that, like, no mortal is really able to escape. Granted, magic might be able to work around it, and that's also why the arbiter of time is a thing, because they need to govern that shit and make sure everything plays out either how it's supposed to, or in a new way that the world has to be reshaped by, and then obviously the arbiter of time has a lot of work to do. Edicts of Yone, the sun goddess. Sun, healing, fire, and might. Well, I believe we don't necessarily need an edict for their domain of fire. That could be problematic. Reviewing that campaigning, through sheer skill and happenstance, my party did end up creating a new god, Lord Ahoka, god of being assassinated. My lord. That is hysterical. This one, an edict, is be humble in your skills. Because the idea is, like, you want to, like, Yone is responsible, again, for all the class gods. So Yone is meant to, like, appreciate the ever-loving fuck out of masters in their own fields. Even that, like, godly thief, Yone has, like, some amount of respect for. Even though, like, considered, like, thinking about it, they should not be on good terms. Because Yone is lawful good, and that thief god is chaotic neutral. Like, one more step and they're on the opposite sides of the alignment chart. But even then, like, Yone appreciates and respects the ever-loving hell out of the skill that like, godly thief has. That's why they're a god. A lot of gods that Yone created are more mortals that have ascended beyond the mortal realm, which is why that not all of them are good. Because otherwise, if Yone just created literally all of the gods for that, they would just all be good because she is lawful good. Like, it doesn't really click outside of, like, well, there has to be balance. Why every god Yone would create would then not be good. And Fine has every excuse in the world why all of the gods she creates don't have to be good. Because she's chaotic. She doesn't give a shit. She's creating concepts. Of course they're going to be all over the fucking spectrum. That just checks. And then Elos making, you know, the gods of the ancestries, or the races, if you rather. Mortals are fickle, and of course, those gods are going to be all over the place as far as their alignments are concerned as well. Because they are made in the image of, or rather, they are made, and then they may make the mortals in the image of themselves, spurned on by the arbiter of life. Or perhaps they're charmed by particular mortals and they reshape their image to that image, and thus proclaim themselves that sort of god. I'm still working on a lot of the details of this, like, pantheon, if you couldn't tell. That's too specific wording. I know they're not the god of wisdom, who is the monk god, who would and does have perfection in their repertoire. But I don't want to, like, eliminate the idea of, like, mastery is perfection. You know. Skills, pursue mastery. Because the idea is, like, don't get a big head. Be sure that you're a master of your craft. Then, because that's 2 in might. Something for sun and healing. Is there a way to blend those? Because sun usually refers to bringing light and also purging the undead. Whereas healing is, I mean, that one's self-explanatory, I feel like. So an edict. And I don't want it to be tolerate not the undead. Because, and I have covered for this, there is a non-evil god of undeath. Like, that is actually a thing in this universe. There is a god who is not evil, and they are a god of undeath. And the idea is they are known as the Redeemed Husk. And, like, followers of them are necromancers interested only in fighting back against the undead or repurposing undead in a more consensual, helpful way. As in getting permission from the person before they die, preferably to resurrect their corpse, and then have them still work in undeath. Be it for less than savory tasks, or maybe they didn't feel like they were done with whatever work they were doing and want to keep going at it. So, hey, Bob, who died last week, that's his corpse. Everybody say hi to Bob again. And now Bob is a miner who that was his occupation the whole time, and now he literally will not tire. That could raise some interesting and sticky social situations. But ultimately, like, necromancy could still be banned in a number of nations and is mostly accepted in those that are like, well, I mean, we are nations that follow the pursuit of knowledge and everything, and this god does exist, and they are forgiven, so yes, you can practice necromancy, but we are going to scrutinize the ever-loving fuck out of your practice. But we're talking about the sun goddess. Another edict of the sun goddess. They're not a god of generosity necessarily, but the idea is provide for the less fortunate, but not beyond your capabilities or resources. There is a god of generosity. That's a better edict for them. This one's tough. I'll have to save that one. I will have to save that one for the god of generosity. So I will actually put for god of generosity. Be humble in your skills, pursue mastery. I mean, I feel like that one's pretty good. I think I can narrow it. Bring light to injustice. Bring light to injustice and prevent it. That plays more into the lawful good side of things. It can also still be in like the healing side of things because that would heal a community. It also plays in the idea of like the sun because the sun reveals like the light of all things. Honestly, I think that's all you'd really need in this instance. Anathema. What in the eyes of a sun goddess who appreciates the mastery of something? I mean, the immediate thing is to be anathema. Anathema, like the opposite of being humble, would be bragging. Okay, there's an idea. claim to be unequal in power. Caught myself. I gotta be specific there. Might. Skill. Gotta keep catching myself. There we go. Or unrivaled. Unrivaled. There we go. Started digging a hole and got myself out of there. That. Because a paladin would fight for just causes. And if shit's unequal, well, that's bringing light to an injustice, and then they would work to prevent it or correct it. That's what a paladin would and should do. That's what a follower of this sun goddess would and should do. God, this also raises up a number of things as to why, because there's a central nation in this world called Baraga, where they don't outright forbid religion in their nation, but the central dogma of this nation is that everyone and everything has a purpose. And this has been corrupted to such a point where, like, religion doesn't fit in this purpose because it tends to bog down a whole lot of things. Because as a nation that is constantly and consistently concerning itself with progress of the magical, progress of the scientific, keeping its interior matters and affairs safe and productive and just as efficient as possible, religion to them is this really sticky thing and causes a lot of problems and causes a lot of issues and causes a lot of grief and strife. So it's not outlawed necessarily, but the government as a whole basically looked at like churches and said, either you're paying taxes for the land that you're on, or you get the fuck out of here. There is no in between. Which pissed a lot of people off, but the time that they said that as a forefront of magical nations, and really the only one at this juncture that remained standing during an era in history when a bunch of magical nations rose up in power and then started fighting each other. Then Baraga founded itself towards the tail end of that and managed to avoid most of the conflict. And then all of these magical nations fell, and a great many of them were just erased from history. Like, Baraga is still a forefront of magical prowess and, like, research and progress. But at the moment, not like a domineering force. But they kind of really emphasize this idea of, like, logic and the sciences and magic rule out. We don't have a lot of use. We don't have a lot of purpose for religion. So we will let you practice it, but we're not going to allow churches necessarily. Which leads to issues where, like, people are privately, like, practicing. There might be cults forming in Baraga's borders, since there's not, like, any churches to necessarily suss them out and, like, break them up before they become a problem. If Baraga, the governmental entity, is not aware of it, this could lead to, like, possible extremist cells of religious followers who want their religious representation in churches and such, and are potentially going to do that in a not very good way that their gods would definitely frown upon. Because, I mean, to some, this would be like an Edict of Yone, where it's like, this could be an injustice. People are not allowed to publicly practice their religion. How dare they? When, in reality, being the lawful good god that Yone is, Yone would say, I mean, you can still practice your religion. Violating the laws of Baraga is not the best decision. Because I'm not very good at this whole, like, political creation system. I am doing my best. Baraga, like, carefully navigated this to a point where it's like, you still have religious freedom and you are allowed to practice, but due to the nature of how we are like assigning people jobs, and if we don't assign people jobs, you pick your job, and if you pick a job that is more or less useful than other jobs, we may not have a use for you, or we may have a use for you, but you're going to be busy. You're going to be busy, so you're probably not going to have time to practice in public. Whatever you do in your free time is your own business, right? We'll let you practice in public even. Provide you fill out this form, and it's just a whole bureaucratic nightmare. But it probably happens. There are probably gatherings of, like, the followers of Yone out in the middle of the daytime when people have that free time. And it's an observed thing. And it's like, this is a gathering. It's not necessarily a church thing. They legally rented the space to gather and give prayer to their god. We are respecting that as, like, this transaction has happened. And we're just going to say, all right, and once your time is done, clear out. You good? Cool. It's all very fine. It's not a suppression thing in this instance, but it's also not the best thing in the world. I actively did want to make a, like, governmental entity in this world that, like, the players would definitely look at and be all like, should we do something about that? Should we, I don't know, like, start a war against them and maybe free the people? Is this bad? I definitely did want to play my hand rather clumsily at trying that. Oh, but don't worry, there is a completely capitalistic nation that, like, oh yeah, no, their governmental body is just straight evil because they are 100% monopolistic capitalists. And they are not okay. Like, there is one that's a little bit more easy, and if the players did want and said, like, we're going to overthrow that government, they are probably in the right. It's Baraga that's the one that I want to make it seem a little trickier, and it's definitely, like, one that's careening towards corruption, but then there are some governmental bodies that are pushing and actively fighting against that corruption and trying to get to the true heart of the idea that everyone and everything has a purpose and give, like, freedoms to all its people to decide what they wish to do and how that plays into their society. And ultimately, like, they are doing their best to make a utopia, and they are actually doing it and fighting against the dystopian nature that may come of it if they don't fight successfully. There are those entities, and it's very clumsy of me, I'm not gonna lie. And in the end of the story, it's not going to be a utopia, and it's probably going to see a revolution or 6. We'll see. Anyway, back to Yone the Sun Goddess, because I went on a fucking tangent talking about this world that I have, like, been obsessing over for, like, the past week. Another anathema of Yone the Sun Goddess. Claimed to be unrivaled in skill is an anathema. Do nothing or flee from an undead assault. Or assailant. We'll give them an out. We will give them an out. But definitely with the sun domain and the idea that that's destroy, like, fight against the undead, Definitely have an anathema that's like, if you can do something about the undead and they're an assailant, and you run from them or do nothing, you fucked up. Like, do something. And, like, this gives a lot of wiggle room. It's like, you don't even necessarily have to lead the charge. If you're aware that there's undead up the road, you can fucking hire a group of adventurers to deal with it, and you're still doing the right thing. But this also gives wiggle room of, like, the wording is undead assailant. If the undead up the road are, like, a group of undead that are, like, remnants of a magical war that created a bunch of undead that hunger for flesh, and they are more than likely going to try to kill you if you walked up to them, do something about them. But this gives wiggle room that says, like, that necromancer down the street who is currently researching into how best to deal with a particular type of undead, and they're trying to make a breakthrough, leave them be. Maybe keep an eye on them, but leave them be. You don't have to, like, try to purge their workshop of every undead. But do keep an eye on them. This is meant, and it's also meant to give wiggle room. It's like, don't fucking throw your life away if you can't kill this thing. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. This isn't the Valor God. There is one of those. But this has to play an... I feel like this should play an element in that sun thing. That reminds me. Maybe the next one I could work on is the Valor God, because they probably are one of the easier ones to fix and create stuff with. One more anathema. We'll do 3 for 3 for the Sun Goddess. I definitely like the idea, because what's anathema to healing? Doing harm. What should you not do? Probably hurt somebody who's innocent. Hurt somebody who's good. Hurt somebody who's innocent. I feel like that's a good anathema. And, like, a paladin in violation of this sun goddess by doing harm to someone that's good would have a lot to answer for. This also allows... I mean, both Minfine and Yone allow for the whole spectrum of the types of champions. Yone specifically allows for paladins and the Redeemer, because there's nothing in the edicts or anathema that doesn't allow someone to be very forgiving and, like, a giving of a second chance, necessarily. And there's nothing in Minfine that doesn't allow anything of that nature as well. But Minfine also allows the Liberator, because they're chaotic good, and they would abso-fucking-lutely be down for somebody that's like, yeah, let's fucking free people. And also, like, the domains kind of allow the stealthy approach if you need it. I'm just saying. Like, yeah, if you are a liberator of Minfine, you are probably wielding a short sword either as an offhand with, like, a bigger weapon in your main hand, or you're dual-wielding agile stabby weapons, and you are going to be, like, a wicked, weird duelist paladin. Or duelist champion, rather. But It would be pretty cool, I think. This also in lieu of the fact that the Godly Thief's weapon is the main gouge, which is like a duelist dagger. And at that point, like, no, absolutely, that person is using a main gouge in their offhand for the ability to, like, parry and disarm and all that cool stuff that that thing can allow, while they're also wielding, like, a longsword or something in their main hand. They are absolutely doing that. If they need to fight, necessarily. This is good stuff. I'm glad I did this, even though I'm just fucking ranting into the void and just, like, spewing my creative juices all over the place. Who knows? Maybe I'm inspiring some people to be all like, hey, these are good ideas. Maybe I'll incorporate something like this into my own story. Just remember who you got it from. A main gouge is a specific kind of parrying dagger. Using it as a main hand weapon would beggar so many questions. Fair point. Fair point. Which, I guess that would mean that any thief who is really devout to the Godly Thief would, if they wielded the main gouge, they would wield it in their offhand as well. And they might have, like, a better dagger in their main hand, or, like, just a short sword. Yeah, that weirdly works. That weirdly works. Because, like, a shield is loud and clunky, so, you know, a thief isn't going to, like, always have a buckler. They might just have a main gouge, because that is helpful if they get themselves in a sticky wicket, and they have to get away from somebody who's attacking them. Because then their offhand is protected, and they can use that parrying dagger to, like, get away. And if they really need to, stab the fucker, because I didn't say anything about not hurting someone during a heist. And then they can get away. Like, and hamstring! Run! Did I write down the... There we go, the Goddess of Valor, who is lawful good. That one I definitely think is going to encompass all of the good alignments, but not necessarily go down into neutral if I had to pick their followers. I hadn't even, like, wrote down their followers yet. Down there, name, Goddess of Valor, they are Ciela. Ciela. Goddess of Valor. They are lawful good. The other paladin candidate. Because I figured you might want two of those. And Ciela's weapon, or preferred weapon, is a bastard sword. Gee, I wonder what type of paladins we have here. The one that really hates the undead, and the one who's the goody two-shoes. Get their domains down. Might, zeal. That's why. And then they also had pain. Right. Might, zeal, protection, and pain. Followers. Gotta have lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good. Allow the full spectrum there. But then not even allow going into neutrality. Outside of neutral good. Because I feel like the followers of this particular goddess are meant to be more upstanding folks. Because the Goddess of Valor is ultimately the fighter goddess. But they are meant to be like the person who is like a fighter that is beyond belief, basically. They are incredibly skilled in the arts of weaponry and the art of war. And they are the ones that ultimately like set out the rules of how you do war. Outside the obvious god of war, who is a little bit more open with their followers. Conceivably speaking, said god of war would probably be all like, everybody is welcome to follow me. Just followers, yes, for God of War. Edicts, Anathema. Okay, 20 minutes to brainstorm up some edicts and anathema for the Goddess of Valor, because I feel like that was the next logical step after doing the Sun Goddess. You know what might help me in this instance? Find Valor. Great courage in the face of danger, especially battle. Well, I mean, that immediately springs to mind an anathema. Because, like, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. But at the same time, if you're going to be courageous in the face of battle and you're going to, like, show off that and demonstrate that, like, battle skill, an anathema would be... No. Specifically, turn down a challenge. That will be the anathema. I'm not going to have it to where, like, you know, running from battle is bad. I don't want the followers of the Goddess of Valor to be suicidal maniacs who just, like, charge into battle, whether they're gonna win or lose. That wouldn't be a lawful good god. That might be lawful evil. But you want an anathema of, like, turn down a challenge. I might specify it as a combat challenge. Though maybe some followers misconstrue that to be like turn down a challenge period. And some of them, in taverns, get a little too drunk accepting too many drinking competitions. Like, I could absolutely see that happening. A little bit rowdy, but still very, very good. Another anathema. I mean, you're supposed to, like, face combat in glory, so something that wouldn't, like... Something that's not brave or glorious would be... I would definitely allow that to be open to interpretation, but ultimately, like, if it was necessary to, like, mitigate the death of, like, your party or, like, your country, and you ultimately, like, as a general who is the follower of Ciela, employed an assassin to get rid of, like, a very problematic leader, like, this this might not fall, that would not fall into this, I don't think, necessarily. Would Ciela smile upon it? Absolutely not. She would think you're being a bit of a coward, but at the same time, you have to consider maybe the lives of your people and everything. Like, taking that guy on in the glory of battle is good and all, but what's not good is when everybody on your side dies when you finally take their life, and then you don't really have much of a country to lead, now do you? You may have gotten the glory, but at what cost? What cost indeed? So I think Ciela would ultimately look upon such a situation and say, like, if you absolutely must, that's fine, but you can't do it by your own hands. I won't specify that because I want it to stay a little bit more vague like that, so that way it's not the common approach of a devout follower of Ciela. But it does happen, and they are still in the good graces of the goddess. Just, they're in the good graces by the fact that they managed to protect more lives by that action. But it was not by their hand, and so they're technically in the clear. But it's obviously a looser interpretation of the texts of Ciela, the Goddess of Valor. What's another good anathema? I mean, even then, that, like... God damn it, am I late? I think I'm late. Hey, Vogie, how is you? And, well, I mean, I started late, and you are late. There's about 15 minutes left to stream. But, like, you're here, and we're just doing brainstorming since Final Fantasy XIV is currently down, and I don't have another good game for that. Ah! No worries, dude. Not on all the time anyway. What is with my network right now? That is the second time I watch my kilobits per second drop to sub 1,000. Didn't stay there, but that was curious. I've only dropped 150 frames, which, in all fairness, I don't think the frame rate matters that much right now. What is another anathema? Anathema against that of lawful good. Abandoning the people under your protection. Time zones, man, I can't catch most of my favorite streamers live. That, I feel ya. Due to my job, I have basically had to all but abandon watching one of my favorite streamers because they stream at fucking like 10 o'clock in the evening, and I can't stay for more than like 30 minutes if I want a good night's sleep and the ability to go to work the next day. So I feel ya. Time zones suck. You know what would solve that? If the Earth were actually flat and the sun just kind of rose over the middle of it. Then you moved, so... Oh, that's the worst one. It's a self-inflicted pain. I think I was able to watch my favorite streamer back when I lived in Wyoming, because then he started at 8, which was a much more reasonable time. But here on the East Coast, no, it's 10 o'clock. The worst. The Edicts of the Goddess of Valor. I have to consider their domains, which is might, zeal, protection, and pain. You're in Howie Week. So is this a D&D thing? Effectively. I was going to do this in between, like, me doing content in Final Fantasy XIV, but then I got kicked off and the queue time was 1200, and I was pretty sure that was going to take, like, at least an hour or so to get back into the game. So I figured it'd be more productive to just say fuck that and just turn this into a just chatting stream where I was doing nothing but brainstorming. But yes, it's specifically for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I am basically making my own fucking pantheon. And what was going to be 80 gods turned into 23. 4 of which will not be choosable for players because I'm not allowing evil gods for the main party. They will mostly be there as a sort of like sticking point of like, well, these are clearly the bad guys because they are worshiping gods that are very much frowned upon by everybody else. You should maybe do something about them. 80, you madman! Jinner, you want to talk about how yours has 200? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I am definitely a madman, and I am not going to flesh all 80 of them out. That would be too much work. I had a thought. That might be too restrictive. Edicts. Oh, so like filler gods. Okay, less of a madman then. I mean, of those 80 gods, I picked these 23 that I'm working on now for mechanical reasons. But, yeah, basically. Right now we're trying to work on the Goddess of Valor. I'm trying to work on edicts. How do I want to word this? I want to word something along the lines of like join combat or something like take to the fields of battle. I think I got something. God, if there was a paladin or any sort of champion of this goddess in the Warhammer 40k universe, which, by the way, that's fucking heresy for one, but for two, they would be so fucked if they were issued a challenge. They would never be able to decline it. And you have to deal with demon princes and space marines and the occasional really overzealous Tau that needs to be taught a lesson. Like, oh, they'd be so fucked. Oh, they'd be so screwed. Because they're not anathema to this. It would be turning down a combat challenge. It honestly would be a point that some of these followers, especially if they're like the general or something, probably do what they can to actually, like, you know, hide the fact that they are a follower of this goddess. So that way people don't figure out that, like, oh, they can't defy their goddess if you issue them a challenge they have to accept. So, like, if you are absolutely the better duelist, they're fucked. $40K! Everyone is your enemy! Even you! You could fall to chaos at any minute. And when you do, you are your worst enemy. For you have betrayed the God Emperor. You are an enemy to mankind, and therefore an enemy to yourself. Or you're just beaten by a Tyranid, in which case, you're not really an enemy to yourself, more as that you're just, like, in the enemy's belly. Which, I mean, technically that means you are the enemy of yourself, because you hate Tyranids, but you are a Tyranid, therefore you hate yourself, and all this thing can make me hurt. Wah! And that's what the orc goes like. Fuck me. What else? What else would be edicts of this goddess? I don't want an edict that either makes a player or an NPC or some such overstep their bounds within, like, the law. Because I don't want there to be something of, like, punish the unjust, but definitely something along the lines of, like, there. That's to give it an out. Punish the evil and unjust, but not when it would endanger another life. It's the idea to, like, play into pain, because pain is, like, divine retribution. This is zeal for zealousy, but it also covers protection. Like, don't just do it if you see evil and like, injustice. Be prudent of when you do it. Do it when nobody else is going to get harmed. It's also meant to be, like, an out and, like, a gimme of, like, well, that guy is a slave owner. I should fucking, like, deck him in the face. You could do that. But if that slave owner is also the fucking king of the town, he may just realize why you're doing it and then take the slaves hostage, and now their lives are in danger. So you kind of fucked up. And now what can you do about it? You need to plan and strategize. You can't always just be willy-nilly, like, destroy everything that you see. I think I'm gonna reword this to be more, like... I had an OC idea of a chaos god of harmony and unity, but given it's a 40k universe, I assume it's very, culty and a tad forceful in uniting the races. Probably. It is 40k, that's probably exactly how they do it. And then... Well, all right, there's a Paladin Edict that already covers that, and I don't want to cover that ground. Admittedly, I believe there's also a Paladin Edict that covers the punish the evil and just, but not when it would endanger another life or other lives. I believe that is... That might be in the Paladin's wheelhouse. But I think that would be a way to like also include clerics in that, because clerics would serve the edicts of their gods. Champions don't necessarily, but they definitely don't do... doing the anathema of their gods does lose them their divine powers, unless they, like, do a ritual of forgiveness. Never really settled on a name, though. That's where name generators come in handy, but then again, all these names could be placeholders, but, like... Because, like, Yone, Minfine, and Ciela are all just randomly generated names that I decided to take, because I'm like, these sound cool. They will work. What's a good one? What's a good edict that this god would want upon their followers? That might need some more specific wording for the true intention, because the intention is like, if people that aren't able to defend themselves are threatened, like, don't do that thing. Like, at that point, you're allowed to strategize and plan. We're running a little over time, but I want to try to think of one more edict before I send all y'all your separate ways, and maybe rate another streamer who's doing something game-related. Again, apologies for this just turning into a brainstorming stream. I enjoyed it, and hopefully it provides some entertainment and possibly some brainstorming food for those that are very creatively minded. If I keep my eyes closed too long, I'm gonna fucking fall asleep. But I'm thinking here. I suppose the gods hate him, especially Khorne. If all his people, there is no blood. Yeah, no, Khorne would hate a god of harmony and unity. And you absolutely know Siege has got something to say about the whole idea of, like, harmony, unity. You mean no change? Motherfucker, you're on my shit list. Honestly, Slaanesh probably doesn't give a shit. If anything, Slaanesh is down, because, like, I mean, what a perfect environment to get more followers. If they're all forced into harmony and unity, people are going to make their own fun, and hell yeah! Anyway. Nurgle also probably wouldn't hate it that much. What a perfect way to spread pestilence and disease during peace times, when people are harmonious and in unity. So people don't necessarily want to abandon each other, you say? What a perfect cesspool. What a perfect cesspool, would say Papa Nurgle. Anyway. I'm stumped. I really don't know what other edict the Goddess of Valor would have. What if I target Might? Huh, yeah, never thought of that. And this is why it's important to have sounding walls and just bouncing your ideas off of people. Because, like, they might give you ideas in and of themselves. Creation is usually a process best performed with others. Either editors who will tell you your writing is dumb and that you maybe should flesh out some of your ideas a little bit better and clarify it, or just collaborators who are 100% behind your shenanigans and wanting to see your worlds be given 100% justice. If we take the idea of might, and protection. Half of chaos would hate him. Of course, the United Race is a big no-no for humanity. That's true. So humanity automatically hates that fucker. Because humans in 40k are a bunch of xenophobic fuckwads that really have no business trying to exist in that universe, but they still cling like the parasites that they really are. Anyway. 40k is dark, unnecessarily so at times. By show of strength, we're prudent. Help me define prudent. Acting with her showing care and thought for the future. I'm a little worried about the vagueness of that. Because I still want something to play into this idea of protection. Usually a strong person can, like, protect somebody, not necessarily in getting in the way of something, but by pulling them out of danger. Guide the defenseless from danger. There we go. I think it's a good edict. So take to the field of battle with honor and humility. Punish the evil and unjust, but not when it would endanger an innocent life or lives. Guide the defenseless away from danger. And Anathema turned down a combat challenge using underhanded tactics and in challenge and abandoning the people under your protection. That works. All right, I'm tired. I've got like some meat and stuff to cook that is going to be really gamey chicken because it's Best Buy tomorrow. But I got rice bowls to make, so I've got to focus on that. Let's raid someone, and tell them of the legendary shenanigans I got up to in trying to incorporate my guests in aiding me in world building. But really only if they wanted to. It was nice just to be able to, like, oh, good night. Good night, Bogey. It was nice just to be able to even rant at the void, get my thoughts out there, and if people had comments, they were more than happy. I was more than happy to take some of their advice. Whomst the fuck do we raid? I want to do the Juker. He's playing Crash Bandicoot 3. Time for time trials. That motherfucker. He's 100%ing that game. All right. Once again, to reiterate, Thursday should be scheduled for stream. It will be Wildcard. Saturday will be 4 Flasks. And Sunday we'll be back for more Final Fantasy V. Once again, I apologize. The Final Fantasy XIV was not able to be put in the background while I vocalized my brainstorming. But I still salvaged what I could, and hopefully this more kind of podcasty format, which I did intentionally sound it off of the guests in chat and was open to suggestions from them, was a sufficient substitute. But this isn't going to happen all the time. I just thought tonight I would get some brainstorming in, and I am appreciative of your patience. With all that said, let's start this raid. I'm not too tired yet to cook these rice bowls. I'm going to have rice bowls for lunch tomorrow and the day after. It's going to be great. Y'all just wait and see. But folks, please remember that you are always welcome here at Mono's Potion. And I will see you next time.